Yeah, the next story, Anirudh Cool.
Well, Colleen, you're now amongst friends.
This is the AT Banter Podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Banter.
Listen to all that energy in the room. Hey, my name is Rob Minot. Joining me today, Mr. Steve Barclay, to my right.
Hello there.
To his right, Mr. Ryan Fleury.
Howdy.
To his right, yeah, we're not done yet, Mr. Rick Chant.
This morning.
And we have another special guest in the room today, too, who hasn't been welcomed in a few weeks now.
Technically, she's not in the room. She's 2,300 miles away.
In a room.
Well, actually, I was talking about cowbell, but we can...
Oh, more cowbell! Give us more cowbell.
Yes.
That's the most pathetic cowbell beating.
Representation.
Ryan, tell the people who else we have.
And our special guest host today is Colleen Connor from Blind Inspiration.
Hello. Maintaining the female representation alongside cowbell.
Our old admin assistant in the other company used to call us the sausage factory. I can't imagine why.
Oh, I can't either. That's so odd.
Yeah, she was very kind.
At the very least, awesome. Kind, yes.
Tolerant. I believe the word was tolerant.
I'm not complaining.
And there have been no lawsuits since, so let's assume it's all good.
Yeah.
Well, hey.
Well, that's how you get things done with disabilities. A good lawsuit.
Hey, litigation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she was not disabled, and neither were we. But there was a whole lot. No, never mind. Forget it. Let's move on.
Yeah, I don't know where you were going with that, but let's definitely skate around.
We all know where he was going with that.
No, he wasn't. No.
Thank you for derailing the podcast already. Okay, Ryan, what are we going to do with all these people here?
Well, Rob, today is the end of the month for, what month is it? August. This is our monthly news show. So today is all about news. But first, why don't we get caught up with what Colleen's been up to?
That's a great idea.
Hey.
That was a good segue, Ryan. You're getting good at this podcast shit.
About time.
Boy, you're going to have a lot of editing to do, Rob.
No, that's fine. I'm used to it. Yeah, Colleen, absolutely. Tell us what you have been up to since we talked to you last.
All right. Well, I did attend the American Council of the Blind conference in St. Louis, Missouri, and that was in July. And I was representing an app that I'm working with. The company's based out of Dallas, but I work remotely for them, and the app is called Way Around.
Okay.
And it is a free app for Apple and Android, and it's basically a smart labeling technology. So they're using these small labels that are stickers, magnets, buttons, clips, and they have an NFC chip in them, near field communication. And you can program these and edit them to say anything that you want. And the button style is waterproof and heat and cold resistant. So you can put them right in the washer and dryer and the freezer, stuff like that. And they're all reprogrammable. So it's a really cool new system. People have said it's similar to the Pen Friend. It's just that you don't have to buy an additional device. You can use your smartphone.
Nice.
And we try and keep it costly. And they wanted their website and their app to be accessible because it would be, it's often laughable, the amount of people that are like, we have this app for the blind. and the app itself is not accessible, nor is the website. So
Yes.
I've been working with them doing that. And also, I have been planning for my next audio description training retreat, which the America is going to be creating a certification, finally, for audio describers. So there is going to be a formal certification that you'll need to have in order to be a professional audio describer in the United States.
Really?
And I'm actually one of the people they're considering to be on the subject matter expert committee, because they actually want users of the service involved. And I was one of the people who fought for, you should actually have visually impaired people on the committee as opposed to just describers or sighted people who do the service, because we are the consumers of the service. And I also happen to, with a sighted friend of mine, teach people audio description. So that was very exciting, and the applications go in September, so I'm revving up for that. And then I'll be teaching another audio description workshop in September as well. So that's kind of what I've been focused on for the past little while.
So could you kind of touch on what the implications of the certification will be going forward once it's finalized?
Yeah. So the American Council of the Blind has, which of course is not the only national agency here in the United States, but they are working with disability, and it's a very long name that I would have to look up, but it's like the Disability and Rehab Education Certification Society or something like that. And they professionally create, what they do is legally and professionally create certifications. So the whole process, as it was explained, is that we'll come up with, in order to make up a certification from scratch, you need to have a committee of people that have come up with a bunch of test questions. And then in this case, it's not just, we can't just have people take a written test and then get certified. So part of the test we decided would be practical and mentorship based. And basically, the implication of this would be, we're not sure if people will be grandfathered in or not. Like if you've been doing audio description for a long time, if you could take part of the test and then, show us examples of your description and be grandfathered in and get the certification, or if it'll be a blanket across the board, you have to take this test. And much like getting your CPA, let's say, certified public accountant or something like that, it'll be something that you go to a place, like a facility, you take the written part of the test, and then if you pass the written part of the test, you would then do practical examples of live theater, museum, art, or film and television, depending on which track you want to be on for being a describer. And then you would be, if you are found quality assurance wise to be, I don't want to say worthy, but if you do well, then you would be certified to be able to describe in that arena. So the implications of that, I think, are that not only will we have a better quality of audio description coming from the United States itself, also it allows for other certifications to follow. And in my opinion, I think that there should be also editing and quality assurance. There's no reason why someone who's visually impaired or blind should not be able to be involved financially and professionally with audio description as an editor, as a quality control person, or could be involved as, the mentor part of the program. So I think that definitely is going to raise the standard, which means, in my opinion, it raises the pay and also the expectation, not only electronically, but also in live productions and live description. And it even hopefully will reach across to the education field. And, you know, when people go to college and they need audio description for, you know, or you know, even elementary school, hopefully it will reach, and people will therefore be more knowledgeable about it. It will become more standardized. And so it has the ability to then reach into different fields where people aren't going, what? You need what? What's audio description? I don't know what that is. So
it'll also
that's
sort
kind of, yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. So it'll also sort of, it sounds like, sort of lend an air of legitimacy to the industry as well.
Correct. Yes. And I think that, you know, we touched on it a little bit last time, but at least here in the United States, the deaf community has a very strong united voice. The deaf community very early on was able to get interpreters and captioners, and they've always been paid. You know, I'm sure people could argue that it's not reasonable, but compared to audio description, it's very reasonable. I know people who get paid, you know, $200 to sign a show or caption a show, and the audio describer does it for free. So It's just also, it's kind of the philosophy I keep telling people, you get what you pay for. So if you do ask for a salary, then you are going to get higher quality.
Right.
So it's a vicious cycle that way. So we'll see if they actually want me to be on the committee or not.
Well, they would be foolish not to have you. We will put our support fully behind you.
For Canadian,
And it will mean nothing.
for Canadian guys. There you go. That's all.
That's right. You put that on the application.
Letters of recommendation. I have these 4 Canadian men.
We'll say she's very prompt. She's early. Whenever if you're going to have a meeting, she'll be early. We can attest to that. No, that's great. I mean, and really, I mean, audio description, I feel like this is a field that really does need some momentum behind it and some advocacy, because it's a really important aspect to making content accessible, and more than ever right now. That's really key to the community. So.
Yeah, and my friend Jan Volgaropoulos and myself, our company is called Audio Description Training Retreats, and you can check it out at adtrainingretreats.com. But that's one of our main goals. Is I'm not making a ton of money doing this. We're very passionate about training people, starting the process, getting people aware of what this is, regardless of their field. So. We've had some really good retreats so far, and very diverse group of people, and we've started quite a good network. So.
And do you actually retreat? You get out of town or out of wherever you are and sit together in a group to do your training? Yep.
So what we do, the style that we have is we have a lake house that we use. It's on Lake James in North Carolina. So it's in the middle of the woods on a lake. And we provide all of the linens, towels, everything you would need, and all the meals. So we cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then it is a very casual style. We have the classes in the house. And then we make sure throughout the day that there's significant breaks. So by the end of the 3 days, you receive 20 hours of training, but we've also had, we give you a ton of handouts. You will have described an entire film by the end of at least level 1 of the retreat. And our philosophy is that it's very hard for your brain to take in things when you have to travel and you're staying in a hotel and there's fluorescent lights and you're there 8 to 5 and you have to pay for your own meals and you don't have really time to network with people because it's not like you can go out to dinner or something, everybody's got to get back to the hotel or whatever they're doing. So we had been to a couple of these conferences ourselves, and we thought, this is not the way to do this. And so we kind of took a different approach to it, and we're very passionate about that, and we've got really good feedback about it. So people are like, yeah, just get away from your thing and kind of learn this new craft, and people are very receptive, so it's good.
Excellent. Well, you know what? All this talk of audio description sort of segues kind of well into the first news story. First news story we've got is about a new system that purports to allow deafblind people to actually access media. So the way this new system works is that it converts TV signals into data that can then be transmitted to a refreshable Braille display and displayed in Braille. It's being developed by a computer engineer in Madrid, at the University of Madrid, and he is working in conjunction with the Decapata Foundation in Winter Springs, Florida, to develop this app and this tech. And the way that it would work is that a computer program would pull out the subtitles and visual descriptions from the broadcast signal. The system would combine that information, convert it into Braille, and then another app would send the data out to a refreshable Braille display that would be connected via Bluetooth. So it's sort of it sounds like it's sort of right now a mishmash of different technologies trying to
come together as an adhesive.
That's right. I don't know. It sounds like, this kind of idea, it's kind of overdue. I think it sounds really great. My one thought is it sounds a little complicated, and it sounds like the actual preferred solution, I think could be done easier, but it would require, again, that accessibility at the ground level. But we'll get into that. I just want to get your guys' take on what you think of this.
Converting television into Braille.
My only question:
what could possibly go wrong?
Well, I think the tech is great. It'd be amazing to actually check it out. But my concern is, how fast is that Braille going to refresh?
Yeah, you're not wrong. Well,
it says it's in real time. That's the goal.
You would think it would have to go into a buffer of some kind.
It would have to. You can't read that fast.
Yeah, it says here, this is done in real time in less than a second.
Yeah, nobody can read Braille at 300 words a second or 300 words a minute.
We're talking about this is how fast it's converting the data.
Right, which is then going to your refreshable Braille display,
right,
which is translating that Braille in real time.
Yeah, it's got to be pulling it off and storing it somewhere and feeding it back slower.
Sure.
Would have to.
There's only one person that I know that can read that fast. We have her here in town.
Well, that's fast, though.
That's really fast.
Yeah, I don't know. Need more information.
I don't know. So what? Like what? Like what kind of what? Sorry, what's the concern again? Tell me.
Nobody can read Braille that fast.
But I'm assuming that you could probably set the speed.
Like, just imagine the way you're talking right now. If that was going to a Braille display, there's no way I could read that fast.
Okay, but you're assuming, you're making a big assumption there, Ryan, that you have to keep up with this.
Well, that's just it. The information isn't there to tell us that it's going to a buffer, and then you can go back through it.
Yeah.
I see.
So I am making that assumption.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what happens when you assume?
What? Tell me, Steve.
Makes an ass out of you and me.
There you go.
But don't what I was kind of alluding to earlier is the fact that subtitles themselves, are they not like? And I'm not talking about live broadcasting. I'm more thinking along the terms of something that's pre-generated. So if you have a TV program that's being broadcast, the subtitles that are showing up have been created ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would assume that it's just a text file. So I don't understand how hard that would be to take that text file and just convert that to Braille to begin with, and then do all this. Like I think that if this was a solution that media companies wanted to tackle, they could do it. I could see them being able to do it fairly easily. Am I wrong about that?
Well, there's two pieces of information you'd probably want off of that broadcast. You'd want the subtitle information, and you would want the audio description track, but you would need the audio description track converted to text. So, and they talk about intermixing these two pieces of information. That's a trick in and of itself.
Sure.
So you've got, you want to make sure that your description happens at a time that's appropriate relative to the dialogue that you're presenting, and I think there's a lot more to it than just simply taking the
signals and translating them.
Yeah.
Also, the article stressed that their concern or their desire was for the live, which when you have something live, it is being captioned in real time.
Right.
And there's a delay, but it can be captioned by a live captioner. The thing would be that you have, so the audio description would be on the secondary audio track, so this app channel, and then you have that and the captions. So I know several deafblind people who've watched television, like let's say a sports game, and they have someone doing haptics on their back,
right?
Which is haptics is like someone using different hand signals and symbols to basically draw on their back kind of what's going on at the time, and you can have haptics for anything,
right.
But I do not know, and I mean, as obviously I'm not deafblind, but I think the main concern would just be, I'm similar to the fact that there would be no natural flow to that. I don't think you could watch a movie, for instance, in real time with dialogue and audio description. You would have to be indicating what was dialogue and what was audio description.
Okay, I have a solution to that.
Who's speaking?
Who was speaking, and like how... I don't know many deafblind individuals or their Braille reading skills, but I don't know. I guess you'd have to pause it, but artistically, it would definitely, in my opinion, disrupt the flow of a cinematic experience.
Sure. I mean, that would be a lot of information, pretty, dense pockets of information to be transmitted, and then through Braille, which is a slower way to sort of take in that information. You combine those two, and I think you're right. I think it would be pretty challenging. But
the other thing is that, not all of us, if you say you're blind, like for me, I have some vision left. So similarly for deafblind people, they might say deafblind, and they might be severely hard of hearing and low vision. So then you have those who may have gone deafblind for another reason or later on in their life. And I don't know if it's true for other people, but the Braille reading skills, if you haven't been doing it since you were young, they're not, people might not even read Braille, or, if you're deafblind, you almost have to, but they might not, be able to do it well. So it just, I don't know.
Proficiency, yeah. Proficiency would be a big...
Well, you got me thinking about haptics for sporting events. I would think that would work out.
That's 10 minutes ago, Steve.
Yeah, I know, but it's been kicking around in my head ever since here. So, I was thinking, there's certain sporting events that would be okay for, and certain sporting events that wouldn't be okay for. Like, can you imagine haptic tennis? That would be so boring. So, tap the right shoulder, tap the left shoulder, tap the right shoulder.
Haptic boxing?
Tap the left shoulder.
yeah, haptic boxing.
Haptic boxing, yeah.
Body blow, body headshot.
Yeah, you definitely not want your describer to get too enthused.
Oh, get ready. It's a KO.
Haptic NASCAR, just
That's right.
going around the track, going around the track.
Why is this person drawing a circle on my back?
The race is in full bore.
Whoa, what happened to you, Bob? Why are you limping? Oh, last night I had a haptics gymnastics experience.
Did you see the game last night?
I felt the game last night.
Well, we could always take it down to 5 orange and see what happens there, right?
Oh, stop it. Oh, boy. Well, yeah, well, you know, that'll be something to
Keep an eye on for sure.
to keep an eye on. I mean, I think it's a great idea. You know, it just sounds like
Sounds complicated to combine that information in a meaningful fashion.
Well,
Yeah.
what about a dual display?
Well, there are multi-line
got so
displays,
many hands.
but like Colleen was saying, you would have to distinguish who's speaking, what they're saying, you know,
And the context.
and the context and the content, and
But even if you took those tracks and like gave them an option, like wouldn't even just a subtitle track be something that a deafblind person might get some value out of? You know, especially when we're talking about stuff like news programs, or I mean, sure, you know, maybe they're not going to be able to watch Infinity War, you know, and make sense of it, but certainly something like, you know, the weather, the news, documentaries. I mean, there would be definitely some value to that.
I don't know,
Dave
'cause
jumps in a red car.
All of that's available through other types of media. You know, I you know, like a news broadcast. I don't know why a deafblind person would want to watch a news broadcast if they could just go and, you know, look it up on CNN.com or something and get the whole story in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. So, you know, unless you wanted that description of, you know, Rachel Maddow is wearing a snappy pantsuit. You know?
Well, yeah, it's interesting.
I always get nervous too when there's that many pieces of technology to get to work in sync with each other.
Sure.
Because as wonderful as technology is,
It doesn't always work.
it doesn't always work. And for those of us who have, you know, at least for me, I might be tech savvy, but if my computer stops talking to me, I have to get a sighted person. I have no other solution for that. If I can't hear my computer, then
You mean you're not like
help,
Ryan?
so-
He just pushes every button until it starts to work again.
I mean, I try the 19th century technology first to kick it, but I mean, it's one of those things where I just imagine troubleshooting if something goes wrong is just, you know, if your internet bleeps out or your Bluetooth isn't connecting or you know what I mean? Like there's like there's a lot of things that could go wrong
it
there.
happens to me every week before a podcast. This morning I thought my sound card pooched and I had no audio. I was like, oh my God, what's going on now? Last 2 weeks in a row it's happened.
You know, back in the day, Ryan's favorite command used to be format/U.
Unconditional. Just nuke and pave.
Yeah.
I formatted my computer again. Can you give me a hand? Oh my God.
It's like you guys would get the phone calls like, oh, it's Ryan again. Steve.
I need to clean it up. Control-Alt-Delete.
When you coming out this way, Steve?
Moving on up. You know what? Let's talk about a little bit about this article about how Google is stepping up its efforts to make its own tech accessible to the disabled, shall we? Over the past several years, the tech industry generally and Google specifically has been more deliberate about baking accessibility into products and beefing up overall resources for the roughly 1 billion people worldwide with some form of disability.
Billion people? Really?
Mm-hmm. While most of Google's accessibility efforts center on making its digital products work better for people with disabilities, they believe that the big opportunity lies in finding ways to use Google technology to make the physical world more accessible. So this article goes on about, you know, how it's recently Google Maps has introduced wheelchair accessible routes in its transit navigation.
Oh, cool.
That's handy.
In May at Google I/O, of course, it previewed the forthcoming Lookout app that uses the smartphone camera and AI to sort of... It's basically Google's version of Seeing AI. Right, Ryan?
Yeah, but all done on the device.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it does talk a little bit about looking outwards and how now a lot of Google reps are sitting in on a lot of web accessibility standards boards and committees, and how they are publishing accessibility guides for developers, giving their employees complete accessibility orientations. We really are hearing more and more about accessibility and Google specifically. Question to you guys. I mean, have you noticed a real big push by Google in terms of accessibility over the past 6 months?
The conferences that I've been to, you can, and the advances for Android certainly, I think, show that they realized they were behind Apple, is that their main competitor, I would think. But, realizing that they were behind. And I know that they've been trying to make improvements to TalkBack, which is the equivalent of VoiceOver for iOS.
Right.
And so I think they're definitely making a conceited effort to be, I think, cheaper, as in more affordable and accessible. It's becoming more of a necessity. It's out there more, not just the ADA, but the 21st Century Communications Act, at least here, where things have to be accessible if you're working with the government at all. Even if you're a civilian, your stuff has to be accessible. And certainly web accessibility is a huge one now. So
yep.
I think I haven't tried out a lot of these products. I did do a trial run for the Ira glasses.
Right.
Where you have an agent speaking to you, and the glasses you can use your phone camera or the glasses camera, and they're assisting you with, whatever daily task you want. So there's definitely progress being made, but I'm not in the thick of it. But I have noticed, I think, that Google's trying to step it up.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with that. Although I would say that, the feeling that I get from sort of watching the news feeds and in terms of visibility of what any company is doing, I would almost say that Microsoft is a big competitor to Google right now in terms of that, because Apple, I feel like Apple's been really quiet recently in terms of accessibility.
They have, yeah.
You don't hear much from them at all in terms of all this stuff. And I don't know if that's because, in Apple world, they have bigger fish to fry because they're kind of fighting to stay relevant, it seems. They've got a lot of competition building against them. iPhones don't fly off the shelf like they used to. So, I don't know sort of what's going on at Apple, but I certainly am always seeing stuff from Microsoft and from Google about accessibility.
I think they're really stepping it up. And another news thing is Apple just got sued for accessibility stuff. So
that's right.
I think maybe they thought they were comfortable and it was like, oh, wait a second.
Well, or maybe they were just used to being at the front of the pack for so long that they kind of, took their feet off the pedals for a little bit, and put them elsewhere. And now everybody else is catching up, and Apple might be falling behind.
Yeah.
Although they became the first $1 trillion company recently, so
well, I'm talking about it in the terms of accessibility. Yeah, they're not hurting, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but I mean, in terms of accessibility,
no, like you said, they have been very quiet. Even Google to a certain extent. You don't hear, I don't anyway, hear a lot of talk about any developments on BrailleBack, their Braille support on Android. TalkBack, I don't see, and I'm on the TalkBack beta list, I don't see a whole lot of enhancements being made to TalkBack. sure, there's new gestures and there are changes, and they are changes for the better, but you still don't hear a lot about that sort of stuff. You hear about their other departments, like the whole, duplex and AI and Lookout and stuff like that, but I'd like to see more ground level stuff.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, we did watch, we live tweeted, Google I/O. And I remember watching the accessibility presentations, and their accessibility team is still fairly small.
Yeah.
It's not, and it was sort of the accessibility portion was sort of relegated to the second day, in the afternoon. It was kind of buried, and they didn't really have much in the way of big announcements.
Right. And I hope, these recent announcements are a sign of change at Google. With the push that Microsoft's been doing over the last 2.5 years, I really hope Google's coming to the table.
Yeah, and I'm not lambasting them at all. I'm just saying that, I still think that there's, they could be putting far more emphasis on accessibility if they wanted to.
Sure.
But still, granted, this is all really good.
Yeah, for sure.
They seem to really be embracing the idea of universal design, which is, they're encouraging developers to make their apps accessible from the get-go. And again, if they're sitting in on web accessibility standard committees and boards and stuff, that's all really great. It's really positive.
And they are going to these tech shows like CSUN and NFB and ACB, so just the fact that they're attending these shows for people with low vision blindness or other disabilities is great.
Yep. Yeah. So, and it's good. Competition is good. It's great that, that's exactly what we want. We want Microsoft and Google to be racing to try to become the best, accessible, friendly company in the world. And if they can overtake Apple and make Apple, put those feet back on their pedals and get going, even better. The next story. So Aira has brought on Anirudh Kool, who is the founder of the Seeing AI app and former senior data scientist at Microsoft. And he's joining Aira as the head of the artificial intelligence and research. In this role, he'll lead the development of Aira's AI platform, leveraging advances in computer vision and machine learning to improve the experience and capabilities of both Aira agents and explorers. And a quote from him says, "AI is the next frontier to be revolutionized by advances in assistive technology, and Aira has a unique opportunity to lead the way."
Now, Aira already has a digital assistant as well, named Chloe. So,
is she hot?
Couldn't tell you.
Wow.
But
Depends
tell
on
us
the processor.
Scorching with an i7.
Computer joke.
You guys are such nerds. No, this is okay. But wait, okay. So I don't think I knew this. So it has a built-in.
I don't know if it's built in yet, but they do have an assistant called Chloe.
And what does Chloe do?
At this point, I don't remember. We talked about it months ago.
Okay.
But yeah, we'd have to look back on it.
But okay, well, but this is interesting. This gives me the thought that do you think they're looking to push Aira into an app that wouldn't require a human agent eventually?
Yes.
So we should actually just remind people. So for those people out there who aren't familiar with Aira, someone take it and tell people what Aira is.
Well, Aira is a company that employs and trains people to be assistants or agents on the other end of a internet call. So basically, you can use your phone, or the camera on your phone, or a pair of glasses, and you call up an Aira agent, and you can ask them, "What is this can?" or "Can you describe the scene in front of me? How close am I to the bus stop?" There's Aira support in airports, in a lot of airports in the U.S. now. So they'll help guide you through the airport. And these are all paid agents. They're professionally trained agents. And Aira's now gone 24/7. So I think AI is definitely there to, at some point, replace the human agents, because it's got to get pretty costly to hire all these people. They're 24/7 now, so can't be cheap.
Yeah, I mean, they've been getting a lot of press lately.
a lot.
Ira seems to be really taking off and really fairly popular within the visually impaired community. Colleen, have you ever used it?
Yeah, I did a trial for them, not with the newest set of glasses. They were a couple booths down from us at the ACB conference, and they were definitely one of the more popular booths. A lot of people asked us, do you know where Ira is? And some people were using the glasses at the conference in the hotel and stuff like that. So they definitely are popular and people are interested. I think the main barrier is the cost.
Yeah,
sure.
Of the glasses are $1,000, and that's 5 mooses in Canadian. And they have
that's meese.
The meese.
The meese.
So it's very expensive, and then you actually pay for the minutes that you are using with your agent. You can do it by month. They've introduced something where you can now share minutes with other people. So you could, let's say all of us decided to get an IRA account together. We could say, okay, we have 500 minutes to use between all of us. And then basically each of us just pays whatever minutes we used within our, 500-minute bucket. So they have sharing now because they know it's expensive. They're also trying to do different locations that will offer free minutes. So, for instance, Walmart has partnered with them to, if you're in a Walmart on their Wi-Fi, then you're not paying for your minutes. Also, they will reimburse you your minutes if you're on a way to a job interview or if you're doing something that's trying to get a visually impaired person employment. So they do offer like benefits and deals. A lot of the time, they're constantly coming up with new things. Like you said, I think that they're popular because they are trying to figure out how to be more available, how to be more cost effective. And also, they're introducing more AI elements to it to become available, like you said, 24/7. They're also in the UK, too, now, I believe. They do overseas hours. So it just depends. I think it's definitely for some people. I, myself, didn't actually like using the glasses. I found it kind of, I don't know if it's because I have anxiety, but like it was a little creepy to me. The fact that someone would, be able to call me a lift, and when they sign in, they're in my phone.
Right.
They can also remotely access your computer,
Right.
Which can be very helpful if you have a problem. That's awesome. But it also just made me feel like it was kind of an invasion of privacy that I was weirded out about. Also, you have to request if you want the call to not be recorded, because they record it for quality assurance. So again, these people are screened and they're trained to, deal with sensitive information if they're helping you with your taxes or something like that, for instance. But also I could see how, in my mind, I could see how it would be abused or could be taken advantage of or kind of creepy in a way.
Sure.
So it's, when you start dialing the same agent or, become friendly with people, that's fine. But I could see how it could go wrong.
Sure.
They know exactly where you are. And so, I don't know, for me, it was a little bit of a challenge to get past. I also have a guide dog, so it meant I had no hands.
Right.
To do anything with, because I have to have my phone, even if I was wearing the glasses, I still have to be using the audio from my phone.
Right.
In my earbuds if I wanted it to be more private conversation. So it just was they're working on it to be more stylish and to be more secure and more as things go. But when I tried it, it was definitely not for me.
There would be
some people swear by it.
There would be one problem if they made it really discreet and you could do stuff hands free while you're walking your dog. People would think that your dog was being talked to and that it was figuring stuff out for you. They'd be watching, going, "Man, look at that dog. She has to go to the pants rack, and it took her right there."
They do that already. People do that already. They already tell. I asked someone directions, and they tell Joplin, and I'm like, "Well, talk to me. She's not going to remember this."
It's a very bad memory. She's cute, but
there's a gag that they did at the Montreal Comedy Festival, where they had somebody walking around with a guide dog and a map, and they got people to basically hold the map and show the dog where to go on the map, and people were doing it. They were like getting down in front of the dog and pointing in directions. The dog sitting there going, "Okay, you're an idiot."
Well, but so this is interesting. I mean, I feel like this is probably very smart on Ira's part. If you think about it, they've developed this app that's very novel, that's unique and very appealing, and they've brought it in at a time when it needs to have that human component. But then if they can, while they're running that app, if they can be working on something that can eventually replace that human component and potentially reduce the cost point for it, and still remain, that first choice and be sort of top of mind in the market in terms of a mobility aid, I think it's probably a very smart move. But I mean, we also have to remember that there's a free app that's kind of competition to Ira, which is called, Ryan, what's it called again?
Be My Eyes.
Be My Eyes. Now, I mean, it's not as good because you're essentially being paired with basically a volunteer.
Worked for me when I called.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, for day-to-day little things that you might need, somebody's eyes to do, like, is this cayenne or is it paprika? It makes much more sense to use a free app to do that than to be paying a subscription or having to, buy into $1,000 pair of smart glasses to use. So, and not only that, we have to remember that Google has Lookout coming soon, which, is completely driven by AI. So,
right.
It is going to be an interesting thing to watch in terms of AI. And, you're absolutely right, Colleen. AI is all over the place in terms of what they're really working on building, especially within the accessibility field. AI is just the buzzword right now.
Yep. But I think it's smart of them to bring him specifically,
yes,
Mr. Cool, specifically, because I think that clearly he has not only a mind for leadership and innovation, but also marketing.
Yes.
And so one of their big successes, it seems, is that they have very friendly people. They're very, they're trying to be very knowledgeable and conscious and supportive of the visually impaired. And they're still selling it, So I think that in order to, like you said, be able to work on more than one thing at once, and if he's there, he's clearly proven himself as an app developer, but also you have to be able to market that stuff. That's not,
Well, we have some upcoming announcements supposedly in September where our CNIB up here, our National Organization for the Blind, is going to be partnering with IRA. And that's all we know right now. We don't know what else that's going to mean, what their subscription plans are going to be. So it'll be really interesting because up here, our data plans suck. So it'll be interesting to see what the pricing is for the subscriptions. You know, like we really don't have unlimited data plans up here like you can get in the U.S.
No, but the U.S. has got so much more competition, right?
Yeah, I couldn't believe how many mooses I have to pay every month for my cell phone plan. It's
Exactly.
ridiculous. I got to be
Ridiculous.
For your 2 gigabytes of data.
Yeah, it's crazy. I got to be out there in the woods trying to catch them all day long just to pay for my damn cell phone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and what do you guys think? I mean, could AI eventually replace a human agent completely, or is that kind of pie in the sky?
I think with
Pie
all
in
the
the sky today, but not 20 years from now.
yeah, like think of all the data. that's
Oh,
out
I don't
there.
think it's that far out.
Think about all the data out there. Like if you took all of the blueprints for buildings, hotels, airports, I know there's a constant development going on, but there's so much data out there that you could mine, throw out an AI, it would be able to give you way much more information than any human ever could.
I mean, they even now have down here where I live the traffic lights. And AI, the traffic light's just a computer now. It's not physically, it's tracking the traffic by patterns and what's coming and the sensor plates in the ground, but also just the sensor of the traffic light itself. So if you had your AI be able to plug into even the traffic lights of a city, it could tell you, when there's a fire truck coming.
Right.
I mean, it has it would have all the traffic data. When you're traveling, it would have what's nearby, the Yelp review of what's nearby.
Sure.
But what happens when what happens when you get hacked by Russian hackers?
Oh, then you get all that weird alphabet that they have. I don't know.
Or your AI discovers it has a sense of humor.
Why? Because Russians are known for their sense of humor?
No, the AI develops one.
Oh, I see.
Make it right here. Make it right here.
Let's just make all the lights red.
That's right.
Vote for Trump. Vote for Trump. He's a good man. He's a good man, not Trump.
It's a red wave.
It's a red wave. When you travel, you must do this.
Yes.
Hey, that's
Take
pretty
it
good.
right. Take it right. I am your AI, Natalia Platnitskaya. Please press the home button so that I might know you.
Oh, gosh. No, but okay,
If you do not turn left, we will find your family.
Okay, where was I going? I guys completely derailed my line.
Been derailed.
Well, one other thing about the AI, I mean, it seems to me that a lot of what's going to drive this is basically object recognition. I mean, the AI is going to be powering, like if you think about what, a camera, you point your smartphone at a scene and take a live video feed. If that AI can then go in and detect all the different objects in that scene in real time and say, okay, well, there's a traffic cone, there's a car, there's a person. So if the AI can identify those objects and then be able to see, and this is where I think the trick is, it's got to interpret those objects and determine the relevance of those objects to the user, so that the user can say, okay, what's in front of me, or it needs to be able to sort of guide somebody who's visually impaired through all these real world objects.
So it needs depth perception as well.
Sure. I mean, and it needs to be able to sort of determine what object is going to be relevant. That's the tricky part. It's one thing to recognize, okay, there's a cone, there's a person, there's a manhole cover that's open.
Which is some of the same technology that's in these, self-driving vehicles now. That's a dog, that's a car. That's
exactly. And it seems to me that's where the real hard work is going to go in terms of the AI.
Well, not only that, but a traffic cone here is completely different than a traffic cone, say, in Europe.
Right. Sure.
Right.
But I mean, it has to, like I said, it has to be like, okay, open manhole cover, traffic cone, dog, person. It needs to recognize that, okay, that open manhole cover is probably the most important thing in this scene because we need to guide this person away from that. So, it can't just it's not just object recognition, but it's putting all those pieces together and determining how to best guide that person through that scene. So, it seems to me that's a lot of processing power, and that's a really big job compared to a human agent that could just be like, yeah, look out for that open manhole cover, and you might want to steer around that. So I don't know. I don't know if it's pie in the sky. It's hard to say exactly where the AI technology is at, how close we are to doing that. And that's why I'm really interested in this Lookout app that is going to be being released, because that's kind of how, from what I understand anyways, that's how that Lookout app works, is that it's able to recognize objects, rank them in relevance, and then feed that information to a user. So I feel like I'm kind of with Rick. I think that it's a lot closer to 20 years. I think that the next 2 or 3 years is going to be pretty interesting. All right. Well, you know what? Here's I think we alluded to this story earlier, but let's talk about it anyways. This is from actually our good friends at Cool Blind Tech. Let's give them a plug.
Plug.
Good plug, guys.
Coolblindtech.com.
Apple is facing a new lawsuit claiming the company's website is violating the Americans with Disabilities Act by not being fully accessible to blind or visually impaired consumers. Ryan is already chuckling, so I already know what his take on this is. But let me just read the article first, Ryan.
Read it away.
Filed in the U.S. District Court of the Southern District of New York. Let's give a shout out to them, because we know the great work that they're doing with that whole Cohen and Manafort cases. Yay, go Southern District of New York. The complaint from the plaintiff, Himelda Mendez, says to be filed on behalf of other users. Mendez, said to be a proficient user of the JAWS screen reading program, visited the Apple website earlier this month but encountered, quote, multiple access barriers that denied, quote, full and equal access to the facilities, goods, and services offered to the public, such as being able to browse and purchase products, make service appointments, or learn of the facilities available in Apple stores in New York. The filing provides a long list of issues with the website that it believes needs fixing in order to comply with the ADA in relation to screen readers. The list includes the lack of alternate text for graphics, empty links containing no text, redundant links, and linked images missing alternative text. The lawsuit demands a permanent injunction requiring Apple to retain a qualified consultant to help the company comply with WCAG guidelines for the site, including training its web developers on accessibility compliance, regularly checking the site's compliance, regular testing by blind and visually impaired users, and the development of an accessibility policy posted on all of its websites.
So she's looking for a job.
Well, also sought, wait, hold on. Also sought our compensatory, thank you, damages in an amount to be determined by proof, including all applicable statutory and punitive damages and fines, plus legal fees incurred by the filer.
Oh, she's looking to get rich.
So I just wanted to read all of that out. I know it's a little hard to get through, but I just wanted to sort of lay everything on the table of what exactly the lawsuit is talking about and what she wants, because that's important in the context of this. Because
she wants a job, and if she doesn't get a job, she wants money instead.
Well,
I don't know about that.
She may have a valid complaint.
She does.
But my questions are, nowadays, one browser and one screen reader doesn't mean success. Google Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Edge, JAWS, NVDA all render websites differently. So did she actually try it? Was she using up-to-date software?
Yeah, but hold
There's
on.
other questions.
But in her defense, everything that she listed, that would be cross browser. I mean, if you don't have your images tagged with alt text, I mean that's something that is not going to be browser specific. Okay. That's going to show in every browser. So, and I get the sense of a lot of those problems that they listed would be like that. It wouldn't be a matter of, oh, well, this works in Chrome, but it doesn't work in Firefox, or it works with JAWS, but it doesn't work with.
I guess the other
NVDA.
issue, right? I guess the other, and I understand that. I guess the other issue I have is how long has Apple been around and accessibility been around? And this complaint is just coming to the forefront now.
Well, okay, well, let's...
Are
okay.
other people not being able to purchase off Apple?
Okay,
Like,
well,
why now?
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, first of all, are we really super surprised that Apple got nailed with this? Of course.
Yeah.
Sure, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Ryan brings up a good point. I think part of my question when I first read this was just how much of a barrier did this woman face with this?
Well, the other side of that coin is look at when we've done changes to our website in the past. You know, Ryan would come back and say, this page is not accessible.
Well, and what does accessible mean anyway? It's such a broad term.
Right. But it isn't though, because they're specifically talking about the ADA, right? So the ADA has
Right.
guidelines, so they're specifically pointing out problems that do not conform with the ADA. So I mean, that part of it is, I think, is cemented. I guess my question is did she go to the Apple website and really come up across a barrier where she couldn't actually do something? And then was like, oh well, this sucks. I'm gonna do a lawsuit. Or did she actually go into the Apple website and just search for anything that she could? That was a problem. Like,
so she could have a piss and match.
Did she contact Apple to see if there was a resolution? You know, like even Amazon has a screen reader accessible back end to their website. So,
but I mean, is that fair? I mean, if your website, if there's stuff in your website that is not ADA compliant, then
I could probably pull up 500 websites in the next 6 hours, Rob, and show you websites that aren't ADA compliant.
But would you be okay by calling them out on it? I mean, that's the whole point of having something like the ADA is that these are guidelines that your website needs to conform to,
Yes.
and if you don't, you get called out on it. So, I mean, isn't it fair that this is happening? I mean, shouldn't
Yes, a
people
company
have an
should
avenue?
be. Yes, they should. Yes, and I think there needs to be steps followed through, and we don't know. Maybe she did contact Apple, and Apple just said, go piss up a rope. But I think, and Colleen, you can correct us on this, but all we ever hear about in the States anyway is litigation. So
It's the American way.
Well, it is, but are you going to sue Ma and Joe's Cafe down the street because their website menu isn't accessible? Like, come on, where do you draw the line?
I think that what happens a lot of the time is that people, especially from my experience in the States, for instance, there was a brief digression, but there was a AMC movie theaters was, they have the equipment, the audio description does not work, the staff does not know what you're talking about, the audio description wouldn't work, it would be promised that it would be worked on, it was never worked on, and all the theaters in Virginia would do is give you a free ticket. Well, why would I want a free ticket to something that is still not going to work?
Right.
So a group of people sued AMC theaters and they won.
Right.
That kind of thing, I understand.
Yeah, but that's an ongoing dispute.
Exactly. What I mean is that with technology and with websites, this particular lawsuit, I think that we would need more details of the case in this article. I'm a little confused as to if she was trying to look up these facilities in Apple stores. So or was she looking up the site map to try and navigate the website itself? It mentions specifically the word facilities, and that to me means physical building.
Right.
Or the ADA was only signed into law in 1990, and it was mostly for curb cutouts for wheelchairs, and it was a lot of physical access needs, and it was before technology was really as ingrained in our lives as it is, and Apple is a huge animal in our lives, at least especially in the States. And I think that it's odd that this is just coming out now. I'd be curious as to what website she was talking about, like apple.com, or like what was she ordering? Was it iTunes? Was it, what was there an update that came out that just completely screwed everything?
Was she browsing on her phone or her PC?
But I mean,
so,
Wow, she said
there's a lot of factors that I think I almost don't have enough details to comment, but I will say that there is, unfortunately, in the States, there is so much that is ignored until you say lawsuit, and then the company or the people go, we'll fix it now, and it's there's the threat of suing so much in this country about anything,
right?
And that's across the board. That's not even just disabilities, but it's almost like, that's why the National Federation for the Blind here operates the way it does, is they have like 2 hours in one session at a conference about how many people they've sued that year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I mean, I would have a hard time believing that any of these problems that are listed would impact the usability of the website in general. And I mean, I would be surprised if Apple, like, how could Apple get to this point and have their website actually not fully usable and accessible by anybody? I mean, I find that hard to believe to begin with. But I mean, let's look at the actual issues that are listed in this lawsuit, and that's lack of alternative text for graphics, okay, empty links containing no text, and redundant links.
We're going to look at this later today. You know that, right?
Well, okay, but let's think. So, and that it could mean that there were 3 pictures on the entire Apple website that maybe
that you couldn't get to,
that didn't have alt text on them, possibly. Or we don't know. Like, we don't know how deep. But even then, like, alternative alt text for pictures, that's not a huge usability issue, I wouldn't think, unless you have, sure, you might have buttons that are graphics that if they're not labeled, you might not know where the submit button is, possibly.
Right. You know what? Anything we do at this point is just idle speculation
but I mean,
as to what the accessibility issues are.
Sure.
Until we actually go on to the Apple website and cruise it with JAWS, we're not going to be any wiser on this. So,
But I guess my point is that none of these things that are listed would impact the general usability of a website, in my opinion.
Also, I feel most people, I contact websites often, and most people are very receptive once you say something like, hey, just so you know, this is how a screen reader works.
Sure.
And this is inaccessible about your website. And I don't even charge them. I just send them an email and say, your developer, your programmer needs to do this. And most of the time they go, oh, fascinating. Okay, cool. And so, yeah, I have a hard time, like, if it's basic stuff, how did Apple get there? And if it's not, if it's not basic stuff, then why would the article use those as examples? Is it because lay people might be reading this article? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and I think the bigger question to this, because Steve's absolutely right. I mean, we're just kind of, purely speculating at this point. But I guess the more interesting question is that, is this a good idea in terms of general, accessibility policies? Because, there's talk, or actually, I think it's even beyond talk. I think they actually did. They actually are looking at removing some of the teeth of the ADA because of the fear of over litigation. People, they're making the standards, or they're making it a little bit harder, I think, to submit complaints because of reasons just for this. So I guess my point is, are lawsuits like this fair? Should companies be held to these standards and have their feet held to the fire, or is this totally unfair?
I think companies certainly need to be able to provide a minimum standard. But like Ryan said a few minutes ago, mom and pop's cafeteria down the road, you know, if you start talking lawsuit to them, why bother going through the effort of putting a website up at all? Piss on you. But Apple's got big pockets, so let's go after them.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Apple also has an accessibility department.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that a company with its own accessibility department can't have a website that's accessible?
Yeah, I got that, but I mean, I'm being very superficial about it now. But you know, it's kind of like, why bother putting it out there at all? You know, if we're only going to get pissed on, then to hell with it.
I was just going to say, there's definitely a fear of that attitude coming into play. When people don't understand something, they're afraid of it. And if people are afraid of being sued, then they're either going to try and, you know, wise up and do everything they can to over accommodate, or they're going to shut down.
Right.
As in, you know, mentally and physically just shut down and say, well, screw it, we don't need a website.
Right. There's two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. So.
Well, let's hope Apple doesn't shut their website down then.
I don't think there's any fear.
all over one.
Yeah.
One alt tag for one picture. Yeah, I mean, it really is a double-edged sword. You know, and I think that what people have to realize is that there has to be some sort of moderation and there has to be some compromise, I think, on both sides. You can't have people who are just going into company websites to look for violations. Yeah. There's a difference between doing that and actually coming up against a real barrier where it's like, I wanted to order something from your website, but I actually wasn't able to because your shopping cart software isn't accessible and I wasn't able to do that. There's a big difference between that and then just like going onto a website and data mining and going, hey, look, they forgot to
not only
take
that,
a picture.
But you go from I can't order on your website to holy Christ, I'm going to sue you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, probably not. But
No.
I mean, but then again, you know, certainly. Well, I know it's going to open up a whole another can of worms. But I mean, look at the government websites in Canada, and look what had to happen there. And that wasn't all that long ago. I mean, we had a woman who actually sued the government of Canada because the government websites were not accessible. She was not able to access information using, I'm assuming, a screen reader, right, guys? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah. And she had to sue the government. And that was, what, 10 years ago?
Yeah, it could be now.
You know, which not all that long ago. Web accessibility standards have been around a lot longer than that. So, I mean, there is a value to this, to you know, being able to litigate.
I think is visibility. I mean, Apple's a huge company, and this article made it onto the interwebs, and her case is going to make it onto... You know, so the other thing is visibility. Maybe she's just, we've run into this so much that she was like, you know who I could sue where people would freaking hear about it is Apple.
You betcha. You betcha.
Yeah.
And, you know, my gut feeling on this when I'm looking at like I said, the list of violations is they're all pretty minor violations. I think she would have had to have gone in and really like searched to try to find some of these. I mean, I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong. But that's just the feeling I get. So I might almost side with Ryan with this, which is going to be unusual in and of itself. But I kind of might feel that this might be one of the unnecessary lawsuits that...
Just send her a new Mac computer and she'll be happy. They'll settle out
there's the other question. What's she doing on the Apple website using JAWS? You know? I mean, is she thinking of jumping ship and going over to the dark side?
You want to talk about the Canadian government though? This is just a little aside.
Go for it.
I was in a new, and I mean new, federal government building over the weekend. It was not accessible.
Really?
2 stories, and there was no elevator from the bottom floor to the top floor.
Wow.
What? Yes, that's correct.
And it's new.
It's new. It's 2 years old.
I wonder if this one.
That's just weird. at this point.
So I asked the commanding officer of the unit why it wasn't accessible, and he was absolutely flummoxed as to what I was talking about. And it's like, it's a federal government building. It is supposed to be accessible. Mm-hmm. Oh, how do we go about doing that? Well, first things first is you've got to get from the bottom floor to the top floor for everybody.
And a ramp ain't going to cut it.
And a ramp ain't going to cut it. Oh, could we put a stair glide in that'll take a wheelchair? I don't know, but there are minimum standards that, and whoever built this building really screwed up.
Wow.
Yes. The building's not to code.
No.
Regardless.
No.
It would not be to code.
No.
I smell a lawsuit.
Okay, so I did a little Googling here because this suit was brought about by Imelda Mendez.
That's right.
So I did a search for Imelda Mendez.
Oh, here we go.
And I discovered a couple other lawsuits.
Here's a surprise.
Yeah, so there's July 17th sued McPeak's Adult Home.
Because their Wi-Fi wouldn't work.
Where is it here?
I'm not sure what adult home at this point.
I don't know. I want to go there, though.
No, you don't, Rob.
You don't know that.
Yes, I do, Rob.
What kind of adult home?
I got to pay to get the documents for this one off this website that I'm looking at.
So we don't know what she sued them for.
Okay, so there's that one, and then there's also Mendez versus Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines.
Yeah, you see, after all the big money items.
Again, don't
probably not accessible.
Don't know exactly, but
Sort of
that's right.
But case filed August 21st.
Oh, a month later.
She's been busy.
Yeah, so it looks like this could be somebody who is having some fun with the ADA legislation and being a little. Proactive with their lawsuit.
Throw it at the wall and see what sticks. That's what that is.
It needs to pay for all those cruises.
Well, why don't we get her on the podcast?
No, yeah, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, rather than
Okay, Ryan, go for it.
Yeah, get her.
Do it.
Send me your contact
Get her.
info.
This sounds like somebody who's pissed off at things not being accessible.
Absolutely.
Do not tell her what our website is. Our website, coolblindtech.com.
RoyalCaribbean.ca.
I want to get sued.
You wouldn't die on the domain. I would.
Oh, yeah, you're listed. Okay, sue away.
I'm just a sponsor, man.
Throwing me under the bus.
Meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go before Judge Judy. I'm not.
Well, it would be interesting to talk to somebody who's gone through this process, or going through it.
All right.
And maybe some of the reasons behind it.
Hook us up. Okay, you guys want to talk about one more and then we should get out of here?
Yeah.
Okay. Robot guide dogs.
Rough.
Hey. The article, ASU team wins competition with robot seeing guide dog. And again, this is a courtesy of our friends at Cool Blind Tech.
I think we're in the same boat with this one as we are with the glasses.
Well, this is just a little story. It's just cute. It's more about, we can talk about the concept of a robot guide dog, but a team of students at Arizona State University, the Fulton School of Engineering, recently took first prize at a competition in China hosted by Intel. The ASU assembled a prototype of a robot which is programmed to recognize dangers and act as an assistant for blind people. The robotic guide dog led a teddy bear in a small wheelchair, listening to commands and navigating around obstacles. We specifically programmed for traffic lights, cars, and a cone. The students used software and hardware to interact and control the robot dog. Amazon's voice-activated Alexa technology was used for the robotic dog to understand commands. A GoPro camera acted as the dog's eyes. Its images were analyzed by artificial intelligence technology, which was programmed to be able to spot cars, stoplights, and cones. So again, a sort of an amalgamation of a couple different technologies, put together, and it was able to sort of do very fundamental tasks. But are these the building blocks? Is this the foundation for something that could actually be a thing?
Yeah,
Sure.
maybe. Yeah, eventually.
Especially we're just talking about, all the AI that's being fed into, say, the Ira glasses. Could you not take that as a basis and then develop something
happens
as
when
a robotic mobility aid?
What happens when you take your robotic dog out for a walk and it's raining? Is it going to rust?
No, you could waterproof it.
I love it that that's the biggest
made out of
concern.
composite plastics. It's fine.
It's got servos.
I'm trying
and
to
motors.
remember what K9 and Doctor Who is made out of. Cardboard?
Right? Yes, exactly. Styrofoam,
Mostly
and
aluminum, I
cardboard.
believe.
But and this question is probably best poised for Colleen, because she has a guide dog. So, is this something that you're even remotely interested in the future?
I could see how, if it became affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Most guide dogs are free if you are eligible for them, if not reasonable. You would need repair for robotics, certainly. Also, if you were in a real crisis situation and something happened where your robot dog stopped working,
Kick him to the curb.
you might not be able to carry it. I don't know how heavy it is. I don't know what the situation is there. Also, certainly as far as companionship and, personality and love, there would certainly be an element of that missing.
Right.
It's available as an upgrade.
Now, again, the maintenance kind of, you replace vet and food and grooming and picking up poop and stuff like that with, the maintenance of a robo-dog.
That's also available for upgrade.
Yeah, service
So-
contract.
I think it would be, for your allergies, certainly if you were somebody with allergies, you'd have a robo-dog, and you have to be allergic to it. It probably could understand more commands than you train a dog to understand.
I guess you could actually show a robot dog a map, and it would actually be able to take that
Download the
information.
information and
And,
take it
honestly,
there.
I'm not actually being that's probably something you could actually do.
Seriously, you could.
Yeah,
install
I was
that.
going to say, if it's programmed to the point of recognizing obstacles, but if you put AI in it, you could even, for instance, I can't grab onto the harness and say, Joplin, take me to Walgreens.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that we go to Walgreens. She knows that that's the pharmacy we walk to, and she knows the way. But I still give her commands. It's still ultimately my job to decide when to cross the street, and then it's her job to make sure it is safe. But I'm still making all the decisions, where I feel like maybe RoboDog would make more decisions for you. I don't know.
Sure. I
think there's pros and cons to it. Certainly, I wouldn't want the run of one.
Right. Yeah, it's there are huge implications for this if you really sort of think of it. But at the core of it, a lot of the people that we talk to, again, I think the companionship and the therapy animal aspect of it is about the one major plus for a real dog. Ryan, were you the one that said, what's the average cost to actually train a guide dog? Do you know what that figure was?
It's just over $100,000.
Yeah, I think it depends on the school, but it's up there.
$100,000. Yeah. So, and sure, they, generally guide dogs are free. But when you consider that it's costing somebody $100,000,
It's mostly labor.
then the notion of having this that maybe might come in at, I don't know, maybe a couple grand, maybe that does make more sense in the grand scheme of things.
Well, and like Colleen said, there are pros. You're not going to have the vet bills. You're not going to have the dog food. You're not going to have to worry about people's allergies. But it's going to bring up a whole new argument on therapy animals. What's a service animal now? And we're going to have this whole argument all over again that we're currently having.
Can you take it on a flight with you?
Probably. I wouldn't say why not.
Because it's robotic. The thing is, remember, a service dog can go with you anywhere. Your service animal can go with you anywhere. Does it get to a point where you're trying to bring a robot onto a plane and they're like, TSA is like, you can't bring this. Right. You're going to blow up the plane.
Right. Artificial intelligence.
Analyze the robotics. And,
you can barely bring yourself on a plane,
But I mean, when we talk about self-driving cars and how excited people are getting about that in terms of mobility and getting around, I mean, this isn't all that far removed from that as well. And I mean, that's not to say that if they develop a robotic guide dog that therapy animals are suddenly going to be unattainable and we just phase them out completely. I mean, certainly we can have both as options. And who knows, this might eventually, if the technology pans out and plays out the way that the implications seem to be pointing at, a robotic guide dog would be far more versatile and powerful tool as a mobility aid if you take out that aspect of companionship and such. I mean, I would love to have this thing that'd be like, you could have Google Maps built right into it.
Well,
you could have a digital assistant.
Well. You walk into a mall and it says, okay, 400 feet, we're going to turn left, and on your left is going to be London Drugs or Staples or whatever. I mean, now I want a talking robotic dog just to have. I mean, I don't even need it, but I want it.
The other thing is, humans certainly. Humans, we anthropomorphize things all the time. So you would end up. I mean, people name their Roombas.
Yeah.
Like the vacuums.
What?
And when they call the company, they want their same Roomba back repaired. They don't want like, I want my Rolly Roomba, and I want him to, so we certainly, I think you would end up loving your robot dog anyway, and I don't know if you could give it, personality traits, and there'd be all kinds of,
Sure.
Could you have a different animal? Like,
that's how I'm going to make my first $1 million.
A robot tiger guide.
That's how I'm going to make
penguin guide.
That's how I'm going to make my first $1 million, is making skins for Roomba.
Yeah, well, sure, why not? But I mean, no.
It's just serial killer. Just, I have skins for your Roomba.
I stretch them tight.
No, but seriously, I mean, you bring up a really good point. I mean, there's all kinds of aspects of this that could be plugged into this technology that would make it really kind of fun. But I mean, I don't know. We're a ways away from this. I mean, even if we look at either component, I think the AI component of this is a ways away. But I also think the robotic component of this is a ways away. Like having an actual robot, we'll call it a dog, because we assume that they'll make it, I guess, with 4 legs.
Well,
but it wouldn't need to even be in that form. Any sort of a robotic device that has the same level of mobility that say something like a dog would have. I mean, we're a ways from that even. I mean, I know that we've seen footage of them like, having like sort of dog-like robots that can sort of transverse hills and obstacles and stuff. It's still pretty glitchy.
Yeah, it's still like the little, even if you have like a little tank-like system, you've got kind of the tank conveyor belt type wheels, and
treads.
You're talking hitting curbs and stuff. I mean, you have to almost be round like BB-8 in Star Wars.
Sure.
So it could just do the curbs and then just like recover immediately. I don't even know if you'd want it to have legs, because it'd just be robotically cumbersome.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, it probably would make just more sense to have it as a small drone. Yeah. Something that flies. Like, why would you build something that has legs when you could just build something that just hovers and flies?
Because when it does come up against a curb, whoever is being guided needs to know there's a curb there.
Sure, but I mean, you could program that all that into it. It could recognize what's in front of you. Like, curb is at 10 feet 5 feet, 4 feet.
Yeah, if it's got
curb.
speech output, it can tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. So
These are not the robot dogs you're looking for.
I just want a robot dog.
Bus
Actually, I
coming
would
in
want-
5 feet, 4 feet, 3 feet.
2 feet, not slowing down.
I want to be the developer of a robotic cat, though, because that would be easy to program.
Yeah, just have it walk away from
Yeah,
you all the
yeah,
time.
and, just 3/4 of the time, just sleep.
Yeah, so climb up shelves and knock things off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's pack it in.
Alrighty.
Colleen, tell everybody where they can find you and what you're up to these days. Plug.
Yes. Plug. So my podcast and website and where you can find me is blindinspirationcast.com. All one word, Blind Inspiration Cast, as in podcast, CAST, .com. You can email me, blindinspirationcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter, which is @inspirationcast. I'm also on Instagram under the same name. I'm on Facebook. It's all Blind Inspiration Cast. If you want to check out the app that I'm working on, it's called Way Around, which is spelled how you would think. It's all one word, wayaround.com. And then if you're interested in audio description or becoming an audio describer, or you know anyone who is, feel free to check us out at adtrainingretreats.com.
And hey, Ryan,
Yes, Rob.
where can people find us?
They can find us at atbanter.com.
They can also drop us a line through that thing they call email at atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
The interweb.
I hear it's a thing.
You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter as well.
All of the social media.
And Instagram.
Yep.
And all your favorite online media players and stations. And assistants.
And don't sue us.
Because we might not be totally accessible.
Because we don't have any money. Trust us. Go to Apple.
None
go
of
to
us-
Microsoft.
none of us
have
can
any
afford
money.
that.
Miss Mendez, don't even bother. I got nothing.
I
got
hope she's
nothing
not a
for ya.
listener. I really do. Steve, you want to take over the domain?
Not for a few weeks.
No.
Anyway, so.
Well, do you still want to tell people where they can find Canadian Assistive Technology, or you just want to pass on that for the moment?
How's our website accessibility? Rob?
I'm not. It's pretty good. I think. I don't.
Well, you can find us at www.canastech.com. CANASSTECH.
.com.
.com.
Rick.
Rob.
I don't know why I said it like that. Mr. Chant, where can people find Chaos Technical Services? And why would they want to?
On the well, because I'm a good guy.
No, because you
sorry.
tell us all about the service that you provide at Chaos Technical Services.
For years, I've been doing all kinds of AT, focusing on blindness, low vision, augmentative communication, et cetera, for some of the big names. I can be found online at www.chaostechnicalservices.com, or you can email me at chaostech@shaw.ca or rick@chaostechnicalservices.com.
Excellent. Okay, well, we'd love to thank Colleen once again for sitting in and joining us.
More cowbell.
Thank you guys
More
for having
cowbell.
me. More cowbell. I need more cowbell.
No, don't. Okay,
He's doing it.
you're
He's
too late.
reaching. They get to wake up.
There you go.
Be careful what you wish for.
Your token cowbell.
You will get it. No, it was a pleasure talking to you. Let's do this again.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Rick, thank you so much again for joining us too.
Never an issue.
All right, and that's gonna about do it for this episode. Thanks everybody for listening in, and we'll see you next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canastech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.
Whoa, look at that. Master of the one take.